It's everyone's favorite day, new guitar day. Don't let the box fool you. I have no idea why it's in a Gretsch box. So, got this nice SE bag here. And California's worried it's going to cause me cancer as usual. And inside, Natural Quilt Top SE, ebony fretboard, satin neck. So here's this gorgeous guitar. Bought this from C&M Guitars in Kenner, Louisiana, which is just outside New Orleans. Shout out to Tim, he was great in helping me get this baby. So this is an SE Custom 24. It's got an awesome quilt top. It's got a natural finish on it. Got a matching headstock. And an ebony fretboard, which isn't very easy to find on an SE. And the neck on this guy is satin, which is also not easy to find on an SE. Love the look of it, fantastic. So to make this my own, which I pretty much do on all my guitars, we're going to plan out some mods. First thing I'm going to do is add some strap locks. PRS strap buttons are fine, but I really just like the safety of strap locks, especially on something this nice. We're going to change out the knobs with some USA top hat knobs that are black. We're going to switch out the three-way switch knob to a flat black USA knob. I really like how the flat ones feel flicking it back and forth. We're going to change the pickup rings to black so that this whole thing's either natural or black. And then going to do the John Mann tuner upgrade. Shout out to John. This will be the fourth one that I've done of those. His shop's in Maryland. Does a fantastic job turning these SE tuners into locking tuners that are similar to the Phase 3s in the way they function. Of course, they're not open back or that nice, but they work fantastic. And maybe we'll see about getting a different truss rod cover as well. I kind of like the black truss rod cover with everything else that's going to be black, but we'll see. You can see the fit and finish on these frets are fantastic, as you would expect from PRS. Actually kind of neat, I've never seen this on an SE, but they've actually got the nut rolled over a little bit, so it's not square like it normally is. It's cut really nice. I just set up the action on this thing and it is super low. Very nice guitar. So first mod I'm going to do right away is take off the PRS strap buttons, which you can see here. We just got the hole left. Just take the button off. It's simply a screw. You can see that the new locking strap button by Locks, which these are the kind that I really like. The screw is a little bit shorter, but it is also a little bit thicker. So it really seats in there nicely. I usually put just a little bit of soap on the threads and then spin it in. You could wood fill the small void that's going to be left by the screw being a little bit shorter. I don't find that that's really necessary. So simple putting it in, and I think that black button with all the black hardware that I'm going to put on here is going to look really nice. So that's the plan. Okay, so literally 5 minutes of work. We got our new strap lock buttons on there, and you can see the way this lock system works. It's like everything else where you pull up and it releases. However, this one screws on. This is actually a threaded centerpiece. So if it would unscrew, which I haven't had that problem ever, but if it would, the centerpiece is connected to the top, so it can't fall off the guitar if something should unscrew, unless this knob completely unscrews from the guitar, which from as tight as it is putting in, I can tell you is never going to happen. So these guys just click on like so and lift right off. These actually look really small, and you might think that they're fragile, but they're rated at something around 500 pounds. It's ridiculous. They're actually made for boats and other things as well. So they work great. The only bummer is you can't put a strap on them without a strap lock button installed. I throw a strap in every bag with my guitar, so that's not a big deal for me. But if you were a gigging musician and you're worried about if you don't have a strap, that's the only real disadvantage, is you can't put a strap over the top of that and get it to stay. Next, we're going to replace the input jack on this SE. The input jacks from PRS are not bad quality at all, but I really like the Switchcraft jacks for the way that they work. We'll show you the differences when we take this apart. So just a couple screws and a little bit of soldering and you're ready to rock. Here you can see the difference between the two jacks. You've got your Switchcraft jack, which has a nice bent end, which really grabs your jack and holds it in place. And then we've got the stock jack that's on you. It's just a little bent piece of metal, so much better to upgrade this for $2. It's pretty easy to do. As you can see, there's just two connections on here. You just need to cut those wires and re-solder them in place and slide it back in. Piece of cake. Whenever you're getting ready to solder, you always want to protect your guitar. You don't want any solder splattering and ruining the finish. So you can use painter's tape. You can use some shop towels like I do. Anything to cover up the surface so that you don't have to worry about damaging the guitar. So the first thing I like to do is to put a little bit of solder over my contact points, and that way I can just push the wires through, heat it up, bend them over, a little more solder, good to go. So here we got her all wired back up. Ground goes to the center. That's going to be attached to the barrel. The hot wire goes to the piece that's going to be attached to the end of your input jack when you put the jack in. And two simple solder connections. And then you put your plate back on with a screw it back in, ready to rock. As you can see, we took the tuners off the headstock here. Sent them over to John Mann to get a tuner upgrade. It's actually really cool. They put some locking ends on it to make it similar to the core locking tuners. Still keep your PRS logos on the back, and you don't have to do any kind of mods as far as drilling holes or anything by adding different kinds of tuners or plates or anything that looks ugly. So I like to be really meticulous. I label my nuts and washers as to what string they came off of so I can put them back in the same place once I get the tuners back. Absolutely not necessary, but I just like to be really detailed. When you take off all the tuners, you have to take off all the strings. Make sure that you, a couple business cards, a couple post-it notes, something put between the bridge so that it's not banging against the surface and messing up the finish of your guitar. Just something simple and easy. It also keeps the springs in place and keeps the bridge on the knife edge of the screws, so you don't have to worry about it clacking around. And it's really easy when you want to put the strings back on. I'm actually really impressed with this nut, even though it's not a bone nut or anything super nice. Coming from an SE factory overseas, this is pretty impressive that the nuts cut really well and these edges are sanded and rolled over. That's something I usually do myself on my guitars, but that's already done. It's pretty cool. So I make it a point that whenever I take my strings off, I always polish the frets to make sure we're not getting any oxidation or unequal wear on them. There are all kinds of products available, Stu Mac and other places that have really low grade sanding paper. I actually found this 8000 grit paper. It comes in sheets just like printer paper. I got 10 sheets on Amazon for like $5, so you can just cut it to whatever shape you want, and it works really good to just polish the frets up. Although these look pretty good, they're brand new, just force a habit. Pressure just back and forth on the fret. If you're worried about hitting the fretboard, they have all kinds of guards and things, but if you're doing something this low grade grit and you're just pushing on the frets, you're not going to hurt anything. So I don't know if you can really tell the difference between this one that I polished and this one that I haven't yet, but you can definitely feel the difference just from that little bit of rubbing on it, even if it's brand new. And like I said, the frets on this were by no means oxidized or having much of an issue, but you can see that there is some oxidation you can take off even on a brand new guitar. Just really smooths out the frets and it feels a lot nicer when you're bending. So next you can see we took off these SE knobs and added the really cool black top hat USA knobs. Much nicer feel, as well as I think in this particular guitar, making everything black is going to make it look sweet. So 2 quick things about changing knobs. Most of the time you can just grab the knob firmly and pull up and it'll slide off if it's on splines. Obviously some have Allen key screws on the side that you have to loosen first. Those come off really easy if it's a smooth pot. With PRS stuff, you can see there's splines on these heads of the pots, and that's what the knobs rest on. What I like to do is take a shoelace, piece of string, this is a lanyard, and just slide under both sides and just pull up with even tension and it'll pop right off. Easy peasy. Second thing is everybody talks about how SE knobs are smaller than core knobs and that they don't fit, and some people talk about bending this, taking a screwdriver in this little slot and bending the spline, widening it out, etc. And you don't want to do that too far, it'll crack. Every one I've ever tried just fits on perfect. I don't know if they've changed that in recent years, but the knobs tend to just sit right on it. I did have one that I put on a push-pull pot that was a little bit smaller, and just take a little Scotch tape, put it around the splines, and then slide your knob over. You don't see the tape, and it holds it in there perfectly. And here you can see we're going to add a little bit of Gorilla Glue, wood glue, to the holes. Just take a toothpick and squeeze a little bit on the end. You can see I got just a little bit of wood glue in this hole. It doesn't have to fill the hole. The screw is just slightly smaller, but if you just kind of swizzle around the outside, so go inside the hole. And just kind of move it around the outside. When you got a bead of glue on there, that should be more than enough. Make sure you wipe any excess off the top so you're not getting any glue on your finish, even though it's going to be under the pickup ring anyway. That's all you need to do. Let it dry for a couple hours and you're good to go. And here you can see all the holes have just a little bit of Gorilla Glue in the base of them and coating the sides, and that way they're ready for the smaller screws on the USA core pickup rings. So here you can see the difference between the black USA pickup screw and the silver SE screw. The USA screw is a little bit longer and a little thinner, but it's black, so it'll look great on these black USA pickup ring. You can also see that the adjustment screw on the USA pickup ring is recessed, so you don't feel that screw. It's flat inside there, whereas the SE ones are not recessed. So there we go, we got new black pickup rings in place. Screws here to adjust the pickups are still silver. I thought about getting some aftermarket black ones, but actually I like that against the silver slugs in the pickups. If you look at the core pickup rings, they're slightly slanted. You want them to slant towards the bridge. That way the pickups tilt a little bit like the springs are. The other thing to notice is if you compare them to the SE pickups, you'll see that there are 2 different sizes for the SE pickup, one that's bigger by the bridge, and then the smaller one in the front. They're not tilted at all, and that's how they make up for the compensation on that. I think this looks a lot better in black, and I really like the recessed slot here so that you're not feeling that when you're playing. So here you can see I just popped off the black cap for the pickup selector. Just simply pulls right off, and you can see the core model selector, which is flat, which is the reason I like it. And you can see it's really loose on here. The SE blade switches are thinner than the core, so this hole is a little too big. So we're gonna put a little packing tape around that and then slide it on and it'll be nice and snug. So you can see here we got just a little bit of tape. I just went around 1.5 times with some packing tape just over the top edge of the switch. So a little bit of tape, push it on, nice and secure. And then I got a nice flat switch that matches the knobs and the pickup rings for all USA parts. And that just leaves the tuners to reinstall. So I got the tuners back from Man Made USA, John Mann's shop in New Hampshire. And come packaged in this nice foam case. Each little guy in its own spot. So you can see these are the original PRS tuners. They got the logos on them, but they actually core out the top and put the exact same button that's on the Phase 3 tuners that are in the core instruments. So you get a nice little black accent as well as a locking tuner that functions just like the core models do. So I just slide them back into place, one screw on the back and then the locking ring on the front, and you're back in business. So here you can see the tuning keys back in place, and you've got these adjustable heads on them just like the Phase 3 tuners do that lock down, make spring change breeze, and actually looks really cool with the overall aesthetic of this particular guitar. And you know, I'd like to go to like ratio tuners or some other aftermarket tuner, but I really don't like putting more holes in the headstock, and I don't like those funky brackets that look ugly on the back of the guitar. So this really gives you the locking tuner. It looks like a Phase 3, so it's appropriate for the PRS. And as you can see on the back, it looks identical to what you did before you made the mod. So no new holes, everything's lined up right, got the original PRS logos. Although the ratio tuners would be cool, I really think this is the way to go. And next we get her strung up with some NYXLs, like 10s. So the next thing we have to do is this nut was cut for 9s since it's an SE, and I'm going to put 10s on it. So we need to make the nut slots just a little bit bigger. And I've got some 2000 grit sandpaper here that I've just got a small piece, and I'm going to fold it over the string that I want. And then I'm just going to gently sand down the inside of the grooves. You want to really get the side to side is what you want to take off. You don't want to go deeper because you don't want to mess with the string height. But just take a little bit off as you're going down on the sides and make sure that it slides evenly. And that way you won't get any binding at the nut going up a size in strings. So here you can see the strings are all back on, running through the middle of the tuners where you'd normally do wraps, but just pinched down by these black screws on top. You just have to hand tighten them, and then I take a heavy pick, extra heavy pick, and just give it a little snug on that screw slot on the top. And then you just trim off the excess, and that's it. So one of the only things you really got to be aware of if you're going to change out your pickup rings to core pickup rings instead of the stock ones, that pickup ring that is by the bridge is higher on the SEs for a reason. You got to get the pickup more elevated to get it equally balanced between the neck and the bridge. So you're going to have a little more pickup sticking up and showing, which doesn't bother me at all. That's the way it is in the core instruments too, but that's the reason that that pickup is taller. So if that bugs you, don't switch it. It looks pretty cool to be all black. So the next mod we're going to do is to replace these plastic plates. I got a quilted maple plate to match the front of the guitar and a mahogany plate to match the back of the guitar. And they are, this one's coated in copper, came that way from Bob's Custom Plates. Made this for me. He's got a shop in Warren, Michigan. You can check out his stuff online. Pretty quality stuff. Thanks, Bob. So now you can see we've replaced the black plastic control plate and trim plate with a nice mahogany plate and a quilt maple plate. The quilt maple matches the front of the guitar, and obviously the mahogany, the back, it's a little darker mahogany, but I still think it looks pretty cool. And of course, no mod would be complete without a custom truss rod cover. This is ebony to match the fretboard with a gold mother of pearl eagle. This was done by Rock Dog Music in Germany. Check them out on Reverb. Awesome high quality stuff. Here you can see all the modifications that were done front and back. You can see that most of the modifications were cosmetic. However, there were some functional upgrades like the locking tuners, the strap locks, and the input jack. Not only do these upgrades make your instrument unique, but of course the way your guitar appears and feels to you makes a big difference as to how you play. So for a couple $100, I have a completely custom instrument that is now my main guitar. Hope you enjoyed this video and some of these modifications were useful to you.